its ups and downs. I got some really great shots this year, and I'm excited to share them with you. Overall, I'd say the year has been a lot more positive than some of the previous years. 2022 in particular was really challenging for me, and I wanted to try and make some more changes in my life to embrace more positivity. I'm not sure that I managed to live up to that with the level of consistency that I would have liked, but it definitely feels like I've been making some good progress. And I'm looking forward to 2024 as a year of restoration and reinvention of myself. And that probably is going to involve a bit more YouTube. Some of the specific challenges I faced in 2022 were the uncooperative weather conditions and the price of gas. It began around mid-April when I was looking forward to shooting a prairie crocus silhouetted against the full moon in the background. Things were looking pretty good. About a week before the flowers were sprouting out of the ground, the full moon was going to be on the Saturday of a long weekend, which is great for staying up late. But a few days before, there was a forecast for a Colorado low. This kind of set the theme for the rest of the year. By the full moon, the flowers were under 60 centimeters of snow, which is pretty ridiculous. This ended up being one of the plans that I had to come back to and revisit this year, and I'll touch on that a little bit more later. The rest of the spring and summer seemed like it was either snowing, raining, or cloudy. Most of my astrophotography plans fell through, even if it was clear. There were areas that were inaccessible due to flooding, and that same flooding set a lot of things back. When the snow from that initial Colorado low and the 2 or 3 subsequent ones finally melted, the crocuses did try and come up again, and they did eventually, but they were set back, of course. All the flowers were. Many flowers were delayed by 2 weeks or so from their typical season, and there was cascading effects as well. So in one of my favorite parks, the black bears and their cubs come out of the forest to eat the dandelions that are growing in the ditches in late May. But since the flowers were delayed, the bears weren't coming out because there's no food to come out for. Shorebirds were impacted by the unusually high water levels. Coupled with the price of gas, which was almost double what it had been the year before, most trips where you could rely on certain events in nature were suddenly speculative, and there was a lot more risk involved. So you kind of had to be more careful because ultimately you want to have the most successful adventures that you can. By the end of the year, I wasn't sure if I had become a victim of circumstance or whether or not I had failed to adapt to the conditions I had to work with, but I was sure that I had spent too much time inside and I definitely did not get out enough. This frames how I was feeling coming into 2023. I often have meticulous plans for my photo shoots, but that means a lot of plans could fail if only one part falls through. For example, if I want to shoot a certain wildflower, the pincushion cactus, it only blooms for maybe 3 or 4 days out of the year. It needs full sun, and the flower will only open for about 7 hours a day. And if there's clouds in the sky and it happens to be in the shadow, the flower will close, right? So when there's such a narrow window of opportunity, which is actually a circumstance shared by many astrophotography shoots, there is very little margin for error. And if it happens to be cloudy those 3 days, I have to wait until next year. Oftentimes, if I saw weather conditions that didn't look too favorable, I would end up just not going. I wanted to shift my perspective a bit so that I was less focused on the outcomes and more focused on the process. Early on, I wrote in my journal about this shift and decided that I'd like to do more camping and try to be more open to moments of serendipity. Usually in Google, I write out I had my 2022 astrophotography plan, but this year I called it my astrophotography guide, just because I thought the language was a little bit more forgiving. It was while I was writing that guide for myself that I came across an event that I decided to photograph. 8 months later, and not where I'd planned to be, I was watching my first solar eclipse. In general, for me, 2023 had fewer casual outings, but it had a couple bigger trips, right? I don't imagine you're watching this video though to hear me ramble on about 2022, so I'm going to get into some of the work that I was able to accomplish this year, and some of the stuff that I'm quite proud of. In January, I got a couple of opportunities to shoot some snowflakes. I set up a sort of basic macro studio in my garage, and I was able to capture some really nice snowflakes and improve my setup. I had some issues with the lens that I was using, and the customer service wasn't really that great. So towards the end of the year, I started looking for alternate solutions. And I've just in the last couple of weeks, the odd time that it snows, it's still really been too warm to get snowflakes. But I've been playing with a reversing ring, and I think that will get me close enough. So I'm looking forward to having the next snowfall where the weather is actually cold enough that the snowflakes won't melt on me. Here are some of the snowflakes that I managed to shoot this year. I went out a few times this year looking for prairie crocuses, maybe sometimes a little bit too early, but eventually I found some. I'm a lot more selective now about the photos that I take, and I really only ended up with 2 photos that I might add to my portfolio. One evening, I found a perfect little grouping of flowers with perfect lighting, and the other shot was my full moon crocus shoot. I met up with a friend in Arden, the self-proclaimed crocus capital of the world, who gave me a tour of the area. There was very specific criteria that I was looking for. I wanted to find crocuses that were on the top of a steep hill or like a cliff or something. I was shooting with 800 millimeters, and the idea was that I could get below them and angle my camera upwards so that I could center the flower inside the full moon that was already pretty high in the sky. The scale worked out pretty much the way that I had wanted to, but what I found, it was difficult to find an area where I could get the angle correct that I could line it up. So I ended up just taking a picture of the full moon with a crocus focused in the foreground, and then just moving the camera to look at the full moon. And then I did a nighttime focus stack of a crocus to blend in, which was pretty challenging for me because if there's any sort of movement at all when you're doing a focus stack, and it's low light, so you need longer exposures, it can be challenging for sure. So this is one of the plans that I had from a previous year that didn't work out, and in the end, I was actually quite happy with the results I was able to achieve. And for me, it serves as a reminder that if things don't work out the first time, you can always try again. The next event for me was something I'd been planning for a while. I'd been interested in finding some more unique foregrounds for my Milky Way shots. My planning led me to Wime Canyon near Thunder Bay. I'd been there a few times in the past, and I was out scanning the area on Google Maps, and I noticed the opening of the canyon faced southeast. So I went to PhotoPills, and I noticed that over May long weekend, which just happened to be a new moon, the Milky Way core rising would line up perfectly through the opening of the canyon. I called the park, and they told me the gate would be open that's the very same Friday. So it was looking like it was all going to work out. I did go, and it was a pretty hectic trip. I tried to cram a lot of stuff in there. I slept very little, but I did manage to get up there for the Milky Way. It was clear out. However, things still did not go according to plan. So I've got what I'm kind of calling my new moon curse, where anytime I plan some sort of photography-related adventure on a new moon, I basically get photobombed by overhead aurora. It didn't end up being the image that I had envisioned, but I'm definitely not disappointed. On the same trip, I took the opportunity to shoot a couple landscapes, including Aguasabon Falls in Terrace Bay. While this wasn't a great year for wildlife, and my early trips for wildflowers weren't super successful either, I did end up having quite a lot of wildflowers that I was photographing this year. So I did find some ram's head while I was out trying to look for eclipse orchids. I haven't seen any in a couple of years now, so that's a little bit disappointing for me. I did manage to spend some time in Riding Mountain National Park and was able to shoot a large assortment of wildflowers that grow there. There was also a couple field trips that I went on with the Native Orchid Conservation Inc., which is a wonderful wonderful local organization, and this year I was actually able to see 7 new orchids that are native to Manitoba, which is pretty crazy, and I probably won't be able to have a year like that again because there aren't that many orchids left that I haven't seen. First meteor shower ended up working out pretty well this year too. This is one of those events where plan A didn't work out and I had to rely on plan B. Luckily, plan B turned out to be a banger. I ended up in Steep Rock. By the end, I felt like I came away with a handful of photos I liked, and I was able to make what I thought was a pretty good YouTube video about location scouting while I was there too. I spent some more time in Riding Mountain in the fall. I still didn't see much in the way of wildlife, but I did get to see some nice fall colors, and I was treated to some nice aurora shows. I got to shoot the Milky Way a couple times, and I even did my first time lapse of the setting moon. So that was a great learning opportunity for me, and I think I would love to experiment with that sort of subject matter more in the future. The capstone event for me was in October. I had planned to go down to Oregon to capture the annular solar eclipse. This was sort of the product of the reflections that I had been making earlier in the year. It seemed like a great opportunity to see a solar eclipse, which is super cool by the way, and practice for the total eclipse in April of 2024. I learned so much and got some really cool photos to boot. So I even actually did a time lapse, which was a tremendous amount of work, but I think it looks great. So I took the opportunity there to make another video for YouTube. Maybe not my best work, but at least I'm making work. The final outing for me this year was actually a plan that I'd had for a couple years. The last 2 years or so, I was unable to execute this plan due to basically the sky being cloudy. Just a few weeks ago, I did a night hike into Pine Point Rapids to shoot the Geminids meteor shower. There was a log ski cabin there with a wood stove inside, so I thought it'd be a great opportunity to hang out. You know, I could stay warm. I didn't have to worry about freezing or anything like that, and just spend a lot of time there, have a chill evening, and photograph some stars. This was another event where my new moon curse kind of came in. So there was the aurora photobombing me all night. Again, I never got the shot I envisioned, but you know, it's got its own unique twist to it, so I can't complain with that. That's a wrap on 2023. It's been a year of curveballs and surprises, but hey, that's photography for you, I guess. We chase the perfect shot, but sometimes it's the imperfect ones that tell the best stories. This year wasn't about getting every shot I planned for, it was about enjoying the process and learning to roll with whatever nature threw my way. Looking ahead to 2024, I'm not just chasing the next great photo, I'm chasing experiences, the kinds that stick with you. Whether it's under the stars waiting for the Milky Way or out in the cold capturing snowflakes, each moment out there with my camera is a reminder of why I love doing what I do. To everyone who's been following my journey, thanks for being a part of it. Your support means the world. As we head into 2024, I'm excited to bring you along for more adventures. Maybe we'll get those perfect shots and maybe we won't. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be a great ride. Stay tuned and let's see what we can capture together in the new year. Happy shooting and see you out there.